if you're like me, all too often I find myself not thinking deep enough, leading me to make generalizations about people and experiences, things, and events. That is the easy way out, for it takes no real insight or research. Very often generalizations are made in order to support what we may think or believe. This is all too true in politics and even religion. To fall into the trap of making generalizations is often to deny the truth and thereby perhaps inadvertently supporting or telling a lie. This is the basis of propaganda, which at this time is running rampant throughout the world and within our society. Dictators are particularly adept in searching all avenues of generalizations, which turn out to be false or at best half-truths. And some radio talk hosts and some TV commentators are extremely good at spewing half-truths and make their living by them. Social media is full of generalizations, half-truths, and blatant lies. Therefore, we are all too familiar with the outcome of shallow, incomplete, untruthful, misguided information for us to sort through. Now, to be the object of generalizations can be extremely hurtful and demoralizing. Often they may be so difficult to overcome that they remain a thorn in our side for a lifetime. In many ways, it can be very dehumanizing. This is the very groundwork of prejudices and racism. We all should know the results of that. To make any kind of generalization, whether it be towards an institution, race, religion, or nationality, is only to deny what may actually be the truth. But we all do it to one degree or another. For instance, if I would ask you to give your immediate response to the word politician, you just may generalize by saying they are corrupt and hypocritical. But in truth, we know that every politician would not fit that generalization. Then again, if I would ask you to respond to the word Pharisee, you may respond by saying, what? Enemy of Jesus. Well, although when we examine carefully, that was not the case for all Pharisees. All the Gospels in general lead one to believe that all Pharisees were hostile and out to get rid of Jesus. This morning's Gospel lesson clearly indicates otherwise. We read that some Pharisees came to warn Jesus of his pending fate at the hands of Herod, the king of Galilee. The Gospel records, and that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to Jesus, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." For this warning from these particular Pharisees, Jesus did not have his usual response of some kind of a rebuke, but listened to them and accepted what they had told him as a truth. It was almost as if they must have known each other prior to this. In fact, his responses was to ask them to jeopardize themselves by returning to Herod with this inflammatory message. Go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day, I finish my work. In no uncertain terms, no one was going to dictate to Jesus how he was to live his life. His life was only to be determined by God. And Jesus' response was not a polite response to a king. In fact, it was cutting and extremely demeaning. To be called a fox was to be called sly and cunning, and one who was a killer as the fox was. But even more demeaning was that the fox to the Jew was symbolic of being worthless and insignificant. Of course, to deliver such a message would have endangered these well-intentioned Pharisees. One would speculate that they never followed through with that message to Herod. On the other hand, they must have also heard the ending of this message, which was a forecast of things to come. Jesus said, yet tomorrow and the next day, I'm not spilling my way because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. This was a clear indication that while he was in the territory outside of Jerusalem, he was safe. But once in Jerusalem, his fate would be realized. Therefore, no one was going to alter God's plan. No one, not even the powerful and ruthless king, who would have been even more enraged and determined to take Jesus' life if he had heard the message given to those Pharisees. He didn't fit, by the way, the generalization given to Pharisees as a whole. It is almost a certainty that the message never reached Herod's ears. To label these Pharisees with the rest of them, who we see in the Gospels, is to deny the truth and bring disrespect to their lives. They were genuine people of God. And Jesus knew that. But the story does not end with the friendly Pharisees. Jesus' future predictions suddenly turned away from Herod and what could be called the powerful force of the day. After all, he was king. His fate rested within the center of Jewish power, life, and religion, the city of Jerusalem. He proclaimed, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you. In this, Jesus was saying that although his desire was for the Jews to receive the good news of his message and to be protected by its eternal promises, they chose not to listen. They chose to reject him. The seat of Jewish life and religion rejected his overtures to bring his saving message to them. But that would soon change. For he foretold the time that they would falsely and momentarily change their minds. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, this, of course, would happen after so many witnessed the raising of Lazarus from the dead. It was then that they would become excited over the fact that Jesus was perhaps that long-awaited political Messiah to lead them into their new earthly kingdom. They would welcome him into Jerusalem to be anointed the new king, the Messiah. And of course, he was given the triumphal entrance into Jerusalem on what is known as Palm Sunday. But this was only because the people misunderstood who he was. Frankly, this story tells us how little we know about Jesus' life. First, he must have had followers within the deep tradition of the Jewish heritage, which is evidenced by those Pharisees who warned him. But we see very little evidence of this. For instance, there are a couple of instances which could be determined of having some Pharisees following him, but they were iffy. There's also the fact that he speaks about Jerusalem rejecting him, which pointed to other times which he must have spent in Jerusalem and not recorded by the three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The Gospels of John, the Gospel of John seems to have had in Jerusalem other times, but they were sketchy as to the results. One must think he was in Jerusalem more than recorded in the Gospels, since he had close friends who lived in Bethany, just right outside of Jerusalem. It was a suburb of Jerusalem. So he must have been there several times in Jerusalem. And he must have been rejected these times. One must speculate from that gospel that if he had been in Jerusalem all the time, that his experiences were not the best, and perhaps, yes, rejected. Except for his run-ins with the Jewish authorities and his rejection in his hometown, the major accounts of Jesus' life among the people is that he was very popular. That's the impression that we get. That could very well be a generalization, which was untrue. This comes out in his words about Jerusalem. You could almost feel the hurt in his words. He wished so deeply that they would receive his love and his message of good news, but it's quite evident he was rejected as just another false prophet. Knowing the heartbreak which he must have experienced throughout his ministry makes his message of love only become more amazing. God's love goes well beyond any hurtful generalizations or even demoralizing rejections. It is almost incomprehensible to the human mind, this love. To endure the sufferings and rejections of the cross is almost unbelievable to hear the words, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Now, throughout my writing of this message, I kept thinking about the horrible situation in Ukraine. During the first days of that war, the Ukrainians must have, and maybe still do, feel the pain and hurt of being rejected, or at best being left alone by the world to fight the battle to save their homeland and their lives. You could feel in those initial times the pain in their voices and see the pain upon their faces. But fortunately, the world felt their pain and quickly began to respond. Time will tell what the eventual outcome would be, but the resolve of the Ukrainian people is just beyond amazing. On the other hand, I saw people in Russia protesting the war and being arrested for protesting that war. According to a late report, thousands have been arrested for protesting by a ruthless dictator. Tragically, though, we may make the generalization that all of Russia and Russian people are evil, which would include those who have been trying to protest against the war. They must feel the pain of being falsely included as a part of their dictator's evil lives and dictator's evil acts. To say the least, people are dying and suffering needlessly. And out of the love which God has shown us, we must make the sacrifices necessary to bring peace to our troubled times and not be caught in making excuses and believing in false generalizations which may surround us, which only perpetuate the pain and suffering which is being experienced. In light of this, we will bring forth our angel tree in order to help those who are in such desperate need. For each contribution over the next several weeks during the Lent, an angel will be placed on the tree. The donations will go towards the ELCA, which will be distributed to the Lutheran World Relief and the Lutheran World Federation, which are already on the ground with their assistance and help. They're there now. Our love and sacrifice can and will make a difference. We pray that God's amazing grace, as shown to us through Jesus, will continue to be displayed through the unity of the world's nations, the world's people, in order to bring peace and justice. Amen.